I mean, what is the luxury destination today, and what qualifies it for that?
I would say that the world is a luxury destination everywhere. There is really nothing keeping you as a luxury traveler to experience the world. But I think number one is authenticity. The destination has to be special or has to have a special character. Sometimes a destination is put on the map because there is a great place to stay. So for instance, 10 years ago, luxury travelers may not be thinking of going to Nicaragua, but then a little resort opened on the Pacific coast called Mukul, M-U-K-U-L, and all of a sudden Nicaragua was hot on the list. It was a phenomenal resort, hundreds of acres, golf, a mile-long beach, extraordinary accommodations, great dining, and all of a sudden Nicaragua was on the radar. The same thing with Bhutan. You know, people were very curious about Bhutan, but nobody could really go. The visa was a big hassle. But when you had brands like Como and Aman establish themselves in Bhutan, all of a sudden Bhutan is much higher on the radar of a luxury traveler.
But there's also out of the way, right? It's people. If you want to have that unique experience,
but,
I'm the only person who's gone to there. Right?
Yes, there's absolutely there's that component, no question. And I think as travel sellers, we always have to be looking at the next horizon, because if you've been to Bhutan, so what's next? Well, there's Sikkim, there is Ladakh, there are other places in the Himalayas and the Karakoram that you can visit. It's going to take a lot more work, but you can do it. But yes, there's that component. Always be one step ahead of the curve, because I think with the luxury traveler, you have to surprise your customer, and you have to be bold, and you have to surprise people with things that they didn't necessarily expect.
Right.
I mean, also I think you need one-of-a-kind experiences while you are there, whether it's going to Vancouver, or going to, someplace in the outback in Australia. And I think, again, it's a much broader definition of what makes a destination attractive. And I think that we have to think up and out, and I think this travel show is a great opportunity. I mean, we just walk out the door, and the world is your oyster with all these possibilities that we could conceivably sell. But that would be my definition.
There's an old
I think the demand falls into three buckets, and if you understand that, you're going to have good business whether times are good or bad. So look for trends, gaps, and expiration dates. So let me explain. Trends are obvious. If you're not following the trends, you're leaving money on the table, because trends are popular areas of demand. And gaps are a little tougher. Those are perceived demand. Those are areas that people want, but they're not sure how they're going to get. And the third bucket, destinations with expiration dates. Those are places that if they don't go now, they'll never see them the way they are today again. I mean, Cuba is a perfect example. If you don't go to Cuba now, you're never going to see the Cuba that you're really going to see. Other areas that have expiration dates, right now, Oberammergau will be a once in a lifetime for some of our population. They won't be here for the next Oberammergau. So those are areas that you can light a flame under people and say, you've got to go to these places now, because if you don't go, you're really going to miss the opportunity. It'll never come again.
And Ted? Sorry.
I was going to say, so destinations, I'm a little bit limited because we operate a U.S. flag, so I'm limited by geography. But
But
James,
you're discovering more places on the river all the time. Yeah.
There's an old saying that with enough money you can live well anywhere, right? So luxury, to Ignacio's point. But to me, luxury is really about, it has to be clean, it has to be safe, it has to have something interesting to do, and that's really.
Or unique to do.
Or unique to do. The population that we sell to, and I say this all the time when I speak to our onboard staff and our ShoreX people, they all have enough stuff. They're looking for experiences. And my pitch is always that, stuff diminishes over time.
Right.
Experiences, because we all have selective memory and we forget the negative, and we tend to embellish our memories. So we're selling memories. And even for, the most wealthy that we have on board, it's that touch point of the friendly American waiter. I mean, on the turn days when there's tears in the dining room and it's the best experience ever, that's the experience they take home.
On board.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Gail.
Well, I would say, back to the fact that the whole world is luxury. I would agree with that. I would say we started this whole session saying that you can't really define luxury because it's a personal definition, and that continues to make the role of the travel agent more and more relevant, because as the world becomes more and more global, you even during the discussion, you could care less if there's a gym in one of the properties. And
I like the idea of it.
But Ignacio, it's a must-have, and I think that it becomes very personal. And so, we've talked on both ends of the spectrum between experiential travel and transformational travel, and I think that transformational is a hard thing to hit each and every time. I mean, when you think about it, do you ask everybody who's come back from their trip, were you transformed?
There are definitely those.
There are, but you can't hit it every time. But you can certainly make it meaningful.
Right.
And I think meaningful and thoughtful is the role. Meaningful and thoughtful is the role of the travel agent, because so many times a client might call and think that they have a destination in mind, not even knowing most of these destinations, and that there's an incredible destination out there for them.
Yeah, Navin, I'm going to go to Navin and then Ignacio.
Okay. Yeah, so I would agree that there is no such thing as a luxury destination. The world truly is available to everybody, but how you actually travel to any of these places is very important, and the travel counselor's role over there is to make sure that they carefully assess the needs of the client. So if your client wants to go on an expedition, for example, but they like to be able to see native peoples, please send them to the Coral Triangle. For God's sake, don't send them to Antarctica. There are no native people over there. It's understanding those aspects of it. It's also understanding fully well that there is a relevancy to even true and tried destinations like Paris and London, despite the fact that the boomer and the boomers' kids, the millennials, or whatever category of demography we want to hang on to, has been there. And there again lies the creating the surprise and delight or special access into places, or allowing these people the freedom to be able to experience some of those things. And finally, I just want to add, there are new horizons that mankind will always seek. You heard of the Virgin Galactic ship about a decade or so ago, and this morning I mentioned that we are building a true luxury icebreaker. And the reason we're building it is because there are people that do want to go to the North Pole. Yes, you can go on a nuclear-powered military repurposed ship, and there are companies operating those to the North Pole, but people do want to go there and go there in a more sustainable and more responsible way. And that's one of the reasons we're building it, because they want a better understanding of it. Yeah. And the same applies to other parts of the icy world down in Antarctica. And we're frequently asked, are you going to the South Pole? Well, you can't sail into a rock, so we're not. But we will be going into the Weddell Sea and Peter Island and other parts of it, again, to give people a better understanding. Combining this is our partnership with some scientific communities that'll live on board, that'll be resident, so they can conduct experiments and share some things with the traveling public to these areas.
Yeah, and Ignacio, you had...
Yeah, a couple of things. One, if you're in certain destinations and you are ahead of the wave, so to speak, if you're in deepest Bolivia or you're in Madagascar or something, obviously you're ahead of the curve and you're not going to have millions of other travelers to contend with. But if you're going to a destination that is incredibly popular, like say Iceland right now, you as a travel seller have to work twice as hard to be able to deliver Iceland in a special, meaningful, different way. Because the last thing that you want is to be standing in front of a waterfall with 8,000 tourists and be hit over the head with a selfie stick, which can happen. So you have to deliver a waterfall someplace else on the island so that the traveler can have that sense of wonder and not be overrun by a million other people. It takes more work, and you have to have the right resources and the right contacts, but it absolutely can be delivered. The same thing with the great cities of Europe, places like Barcelona. I mean, we're starting to worry about something called over-tourism, and in certain times of the year, I mean, Venice, you can go whitewater rafting down the Rialto with the crowds of people. So there is a way to do Venice, but maybe it isn't, Piazza San Marco at 3 p.m. Maybe it's taking your clients to Torcello and having them see a monastery with the monk that runs the place, and deliver something that is very authentic. So it can be done no matter where you are, but you have to have the right resources.
Okay, I want.